When I sent out the announcement about this candidate forum, I did invite Chris Coos, who is the current for 18 years has served as mayor, and he declined the opportunity to come before the voters or to be on record in this event. So it's a free country. I could not force him to come and talk to voters, but I am very grateful that Marc Tiritilli did not hesitate, that he truly did see an opportunity here, that we wanted to give voters as much information about the candidates that are going to be on their ballot when they walk into the ballot booth on April 6th, or when they go in the early voting stages here. So without any further ado, I'm going to shift into inviting Marc to come to the mic. You still have the question and answer options here to those that are attending to be able to add and ask a question. So don't keep doing that if you are inclined to do so, and we will share those with Marc and give him a chance to respond after we give him a time to tell us and introduce and talk about what he sees as the goals and visions that he brings to the role of mayor for the city of Normal. So Marc, I'm going to open up the mic to you and welcome you to the evening.
Thank you, Connie. I want to thank McLean County GOP for inviting me here tonight. And yes, I see this as an opportunity to talk to the voters. That's what my campaign has been about. And I believe in representation, and you have to go out and talk to the people. So a little bit about myself. I first moved here to Bloomington Normal in 1997 to go to Illinois State University, and I was transitioning out of a career in industrial maintenance. So I've worked my way up from just changing light bulbs at a department store to working with HVAC systems, becoming the actual chief engineer and managing facilities, moving into industry and working on industrial automation and robotics, and dealing with situations that are fairly high pressure. So some of the equipment I would work on would be assembly lines, and while it's down, you're losing $1,100 every 10 seconds, and it's up to you to figure out what's wrong, how to fix it, balance the needs to get it running against the needs of ongoing maintenance and safety, and those can be some high pressure decisions. And so I've gotten used to working in that in a technical capacity. I also have a hobby of cave exploration, and very early on got into cave rescue. Started taking just some practical classes, but moved on up and became a cave rescue instructor with the National Cave Rescue Commission, where we were continually evolving our practices, served on the education committee over there, designing the curriculum that would be used to train emergency personnel out in the field. We moved to Danvers for a while. I served as a volunteer firefighter out there, really enjoyed that time. And all of that was during transition to my latest career, which is in education. And so in 2003, I started teaching out at Tremont High School. I was out there for 5 years teaching math and science. We moved to Philadelphia, spent 5 years out there working in the inner city, again, teaching math and science. We came back here to Bloomington Normal. So when we realized the East Coast wasn't for us, we thought, well, wow, we could go absolutely anywhere. Where do you want to go? And so we decided we wanted to come back to Bloomington Normal. We really enjoyed it here. There are so many special things about it. And so we did. I taught for 2 years at Bloomington High School before moving over to Illinois Wesleyan, where I'm currently in the physics department. And I manage the maker space with our 3D printing labs. And I'm also a laboratory technician in the sciences department. So all of those experiences, they bring together a problem-solving mindset, which is how I approach what's going on in government. And when I looked around at the town of Normal and saw a lot of the decisions were being made, I thought, some of these things aren't making as much sense as I think they could. And so I would ask the council members, I would attend council meetings. And what I quickly realized is that, sometimes dissent was really not appreciated. And I think that's wrong. Because you would see these very short meetings where things would be on the agenda, it's a quick unanimous vote, and then things were done. And these are some weighty decisions. So that discussion needs to take place in the public light. And that's one of the principles of open government that I really want to be the champion for. Too many of these discussions are not out in the open. And they don't bring in all sides. And I think that's when you have dissatisfaction in the community. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in just a minute. So a couple of other things here. As people had mentioned, the mayor's race is nonpartisan. So the township trustees, yes, that's a partisan race, but I'm here independent. And I am politically independent. I have voted for Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, up and down the ballot from the local to the national level. And I continue to do so. I'm here tonight at Connie's invitation. I really appreciate it. And that's the mindset that we need to have in this community, because we need to heal a lot of the division that has taken place, and we need to bring people together in a better way. So that's what I'm looking to do. This election is not about Uptown, as some people have suggested. Regardless of who wins, Uptown is still going to be there. But we have to figure out the way to pay for it. Okay, we went $100 million into debt. With our outstanding debt and our interest, we still have $117 million left to pay on Uptown. Half of the bonds that we have are interest only, and they're not going to pay principal until 2038. I don't think that's the right approach. We have opportunities to pay some of them off. In January, the town council chose not to pay off a $2 million bond. It was $1.8 million. But to extend it out, they're actually going to pay more in interest over the life of the loan than they actually borrowed. I don't think that's effective government. I don't think that's an effective use of our resources. And when this is all said and done, we'll have spent over $50 million just in interest. Imagine what could be done in this community with $50 million over 20 years. We've got to look at our financing in a different way. And the current administration is not willing to do that. We just saw what they wanted to do. They wanted to refinance and continue to pay the interest. I say, no, we should pay that off and save the money and pay ourselves back the interest. I mean, when we're spending more every year on interest than we are on resurfacing our roads, then we have a problem with our priorities. And that's the theme of my campaign, is that Normal needs better priorities. This financial integrity is one of them. We also have to look at the way we're doing incentives. This gets to the idea of division versus unity. We've had a lot of incentives that have served to selectively favor certain businesses. We've had a lot of deals that have divided the community. I mean, how do you bring a major world-class manufacturer to town, providing hundreds of jobs, and yet you have a divided community over? How do you bring forward a major development in Uptown that's going to increase the EAV, that's going to provide jobs, and yet you have a divided community over it? It's a failure in leadership. That's what it is. A lot of these deals, it's not that they're good or bad. The problem is in the details. What kind of incentives are we using? Are we giving away existing tax revenue? That's not good. Or are we working with what will be brought to the table? You know, when people looked at Trail East and said, hey, can we preserve some of the architecture? Can we save the mural? Of course, those things could have been done, but the council chose not to. And they pushed through this plan that does none of those things. And so when the community says, hey, they're not listening to me, that's what promotes division. And I don't think that's healthy. So I want to bring better priorities, better inclusion, better representation to the town council and to the mayor's office to try and heal some of those things. If we can have everybody's voice involved, if we can open up public comment, bring more people from outside the usual influences into the discussion, have the discussion out in public so that all sides are represented. So people look at it and say, hey, you know what? I might not have agreed with the decision, but at least what I was thinking was spoken and represented by somebody up there on the council. Well, that's the success of our system of government. That hasn't been taking place. In fact, right now, there are 3 cases pending before the Attorney General's office against the mayor for violations of the Open Meetings Act. That's unacceptable. We had the most restrictive public comment policy in the state with the 45-day rule that they finally got rid of when they were going to be forced to. It wasn't willingly. I want a completely different approach. We need to involve everybody in the government because we're going to have division unless we start talking together. Regardless of who wins this election, thousands of people will have wanted it the other way. Well, guess what? Those people are still residents in this community. Their voices still need to be heard. Okay? And for too long, it's only been the winner take all approach. And that's not what I want to see. I want to have council that has diversity on, that has all voices represented. And the only way to do that is to change the leadership, because for 18 years, we've seen a monolithic, unanimous approach driven towards a fixed goal that does not brook dissent. And we need to change that. So those are some of the many reasons why I'm running for mayor in this election. I'm happy to throw it open to any questions that you have. I'm encouraging people to vote, regardless of which side of the fence you're on. It's very important to get out and vote. We've got a great community. We should all be involved, and I want to move Normal forward in unity with better priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to move into an opportunity for you to have some questions thrown your way. I guess I'll even challenge our panelists, our township candidates. If they've got a question for you, they can certainly put a little hand up and we can field a question live from them. But I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Bruce, as he's been looking at the questions that are being submitted in writing from the Q&A portion. We'll start with those. So Bruce, if you want to present a question to Mark.
Yes, thank you. Mark, this question was asked before your initial response, so I'll ask it again, and you can clarify if you'd like. Property taxes are increasing every year. Buy reserves have increased substantially as well. Question is why? And why does the town use reserves to buy trucks when the pension debt is what it is?
Well, the funds are kind of separated. So let me talk about the property tax question. The town uses its property tax revenue essentially two ways. A big chunk of it goes towards funding pensions, and then they've tried to hold back $1 million a year for the general fund. I've been coming before the council on a yearly basis since 2015 saying, look at the numbers. Every year you've been raising the property tax levy, bringing more money in. Some of them have been record-breaking increases, and yet every single year the pension funding has decreased. There was a refusal from the town to fund pensions in any other way using any other resource. And it hasn't worked. So we went from having police and fire pensions at 74 and 78% to now we're down to 43 and 47%. I mean, they're falling through the floor. We lost 9% on one of the pensions just last year alone. That's not the approach. You simply cannot raise property taxes enough to overcome that kind of a deficit. So the pensions are going to require a higher priority. You can put the property tax money in, but you can't keep raising those rates. I mean, we've had people coming, for jobs here at Rivian saying they cannot believe how high property taxes are here in town or in the state in general. But given the option, a lot of them are choosing to live on the periphery, surrounding communities, and commute in. It just works out better financially for them, and that's not healthy. We saw that when Diamond Star was in operation, people would come in from outside communities because it was simply too expensive to live here in town. So the approach is we need to devote more of those resources to fully funding the pensions. Why is there two accounts for that? Well, it's not wrong to have a capital funding account. You look at down the road, it's healthy to say, hey, we know that we're going to have this big replacement cost. Fire trucks last a certain amount of time. Roadwork trucks, large capital things that depreciate, you can kind of plan for. And so they put the money aside for those needs. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've got to make sure the other things are in balance. And so a good example to me, I referred to it a moment ago, was that latest refinancing that they did. They took out a $1.8 million bond in 2010. They could have just paid it off. We had a $6 million surplus last year. There was plenty of money in the reserves. We could have paid it off, taken the interest payments we had been making and paid ourselves back. And in less time, long before 2038, we would have eliminated that debt. We would have had all of our capital reserve back to where it was and beyond. And we would have saved over $2 million in interest. That's more than we're spending on street resurfacing this year. So to me, it's you have to have a better mix. We have plenty of resources coming in. We don't need to raise the taxes. We just need to prioritize where it's going. So I hope that addresses the question. If not, let me know and we'll go again.
Okay, a similar topic about money. Eric, thank you for your question. The town of Normal has sizable unrestricted fund balance. What would you do with it as mayor? And you did answer it on the question and answer, but I'll give you a chance to do it for everyone listening.
Sure. So what I said was I would devote more of it to road work, pensions, and debt reduction than the current administration is willing to do. In particular, the town has attempted to fund pensions solely through property taxes. I just talked about that. And the numbers show that this is unworkable. We have to include money from the general fund somehow. It's the only way. So that's what I would do. There is a very large general fund, which means that it can be allocated wherever we choose. And where we have chosen to do that is in areas that I think need more funding. A perfect example, roads. The town just voted to double the local motor fuel tax, saying this is how we're going to get more funding for our roads. What that really means is that to the town of Normal, to the current administration, roads are the lowest priority, because they're saying we can't put any more into the roads unless we raise taxes, meaning there is no other place we could possibly reallocate funds to the roads. Everything else has to be more important because we can't give it up. The only way to do it is to raise taxes. I think that was absolutely upside down. There was no need to raise the local motor fuel tax even more. It was brand new only a few years ago. So what happened to the way we were funding roads before? That money that we used to pay into the general fund to pay for our road work is now being used somewhere else. And they're using this new tax, this newly generated revenue within the last couple of years to try and pay for the roads. So again, that's a creep of priority where the money we had been devoting towards the essentials is now going elsewhere. And so we're trying to raise more money to cover what we should be doing, and not even in a sufficient amount. Again, it's a question of priority.
Thank you. I've got another very related question, so maybe it's a quick answer. The town recently transferred $8 million out of reserves to buy stuff. Was that the best use of our money?
There was money moved into the capital fund. It depends where they're going to spend it. Whether the money sits in the general fund, whether it sits in the capital and vehicle replacement fund, that's not really so important. So whether it gets transferred around is not a big deal. It's what are we spending it on? So it's not wrong to spend $8 million necessarily. It's does it need to be spent? Does it, and what priorities are we doing that? So I guess the short answer is, in and of itself, it's not particularly indicative of a problem. But as I said, when we look at the big picture of what are we spending on our roads, our water mains, our pension funding, our debt reduction, and what are our property tax rates, then we need to say, okay, if we're moving $8 million, where should it be going? And to me, we need to improve some of those other priorities.
Thank you. Next question from John. Thank you, John. How can cooperation between the cities and the county be increased?
There's a lot of ways to do that. One of them is through dialogue, through discussion, through talking. I am willing to talk and work with anybody. I have a lived experience of listening, inclusion, and engagement. That's what I have to do as a teacher. I have no choice as to who's sitting in my classroom. And I get students across a full spectrum. I have students that don't want to listen to me. I have students that are trying to throw punches at me, and yet I still have to work with them. So to me, walking down the street a little bit and talking to some of my colleagues is not a problem. And it's something that we should be engaging, because one of my mottos in the classroom is that we're smarter together as a group. We have more knowledge in aggregate than we do individually. And so they are facing in Bloomington a lot of the same problems we face in Normal. The county has to figure out how best to resurface roads, manage logistics, large budgets, and we all have different experiences that we can bring to the table and share those experiences. So absolutely, I'm in favor of more collaboration. And beyond that, in the very general sense, what can we do specifically? You know, the town of Normal is looking at building new fire station. Bloomington has been talking about that. We should absolutely be engaging both levels of government there to say, how can we work most effectively together? Are there any resources that can be shared? You know, how is what we are doing going to impact you? We can do that in terms of roads, all kinds of approaches. So I'm very much in favor of working more collaboratively, excuse me, and would welcome opportunities to do so.
Thank you again. I've got an anonymous question from someone who asked if you've read and agree with the town mission statement.
I I don't recall it off the top of my head. So if you give me a moment, we'll look it up. I believe it is committed to service excellence, if I'm remembering it correctly. Yes, that is one of the great things that has been done, is the town has built a staff that really is committed to excellence. There's no question about it. They serve the community well, and I think that's a great asset. It's the council that sets the policy. And so I would love to have such a productive and effective staff working for a new direction in policy.
Okay, next question. I'm going to filter this just a little bit. What would you say to current board members who criticize either individual or other board members as short-sighted and not able to see the big picture when it comes to budget and spending?
Those are personal attacks. Those are certainly not welcome within a meeting. You can talk about how you disagree with someone's assessment, but by saying it's short-sighted, that's not productive. And it's the job of the mayor as the chairman of that meeting to regulate that discussion. It needs to be something that promotes the discussion. Robert's Rules of Order are not there to shut down input. They are there to facilitate the discussion, to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak in an orderly fashion. And so personal attacks don't do that, and they need to be immediately quelled and appropriate action taken. So absolutely, we need to have a healthy discussion. There ought to be disagreement on points of view. That's why we have a council. If there wasn't, then we would only need one person. So that brings us back to the idea of representational government. You know, this is why we have it. You know, people lament low turnout. I'm going to take a detour for just a moment. And I don't fault voters, because we all have lives to lead. Not everybody can be so thoroughly engaged in local politics. That's fine. We have our own struggles. This is why we elect people to do the job for us, so that we can sleep at night trusting that somebody is representing our interests. Okay? And in order to do that effectively, with the wonderful diversity we have in this community, we need lots of different perspectives on the council, which means we need to have that orderly discussion. We can't quash a certain point of view. We can't try and shut someone down because we think they're giving a dissenting opinion. And so it needs to be orderly. It needs to be civil. I think I'm well equipped to do that. If you go look at any of the recent council meetings, I think you will see a less than ideal picture of that taking place. And so I want to bring a better dynamic to the council interactions.
That'll lead into the next comment/question. You mentioned diversity a couple times, and the commenter, Dino, thank you, Dino, also mentions diversity and has a viewpoint that there has been some diversity missing in the town's leadership from that person's observations from living here. So you could expand on your thoughts on diversity of thought, diversity of experience, in addition to the other traditional diversity topics.
Sure. Part of that has been that in Normal, we have an at-large system of council representation. In Bloomington, you have a ward system. So you have a local neighborhood and you elect a representative from that neighborhood. In Normal, it's like electing 7 mayors almost, in a sense. So if there is sort of a majority opinion out there in the electorate, then it's very likely that that opinion is going to be reflected in everybody who gets elected to council. There are mitigating factors with that, but probably another contributor is that there has been sort of a pipeline created to essentially groom people to the position. And this was something that I found shocking, and one of the catalysts for me getting into the race the first time 4 years ago, when Mayor Coos was announcing his run in July of 2016, and somebody asked him, hey, I thought you weren't running again. And one of his comments was, well, I haven't had time to groom a successor. And I thought that was just an astounding statement. That's not how our system should work. So you have those two dynamics, and what it's led to is a lot of monolithic thinking. And it's compounded by some of the consultants that they brought in. When they were discussing Uptown 2.0, they had a consultant on stage in front of all of the representatives, literally telling them, you have to lock and drive this across the finish line without any dissent. To me, not a healthy way to run a government. We need discussion. We need diversity of opinion. We even need dissenting voices. It's messier. It's harder to manage. It's a longer process, but it's far more healthy. And that is what has been missing. When you look at why people are so upset, why people are so divided in the community, I believe it boils down to one thing. They feel like they're not being heard. That's when you get that level of frustration. That's when you start getting nasty. If we don't start listening to all voices in this community, that is going to continue. And so it is my mission in this campaign to solve that problem, to open up the voices on the council. And if they're not there, to actually go and solicit them. I want to open up public comment policy, allow people a better opportunity to speak. I want to actively solicit lots more input, not just select groups. By doing that, that's going to help bridge those gaps. People are going to feel satisfied when a decision is made, and that's what's going to heal those kinds of divisions.
Okay, thank you. I'm scanning and looking for additional questions here. If anyone has an additional question, it'd be a great time to send that in. And Connie, if you'd like to
I will
circle back on
step
anything
in.
else, we have a little bit more time.
Okay, I will step back in and give everyone another moment if they have a question to throw up. But we've covered a lot of good ground today, and I'm very happy about the questions, happy about our candidates giving of their evening to come. I will throw up a couple of reminders that this meeting has been recorded and will be posted on both our Facebook page for the McLean County Republicans, and it will be posted on a page of our website, mcleancountyrepublicans.org. I'll come back here and live and in person. We're making other candidate forums take place. We'll be having one for the Bloomington Alderman races. We'll be having one for the Bloomington mayor race, and we'll be having one for the school board races. So please keep referring back to our Facebook page and our GOP page to learn about those events. We urge you to share the video when hopefully before the night's out, by first thing in the morning. That link will be on our Facebook page and our website that people can share what's happened tonight and be able to learn and meet our good candidates. I don't know, I'm thinking that there's maybe not another question that's popped up for Mark. I am very grateful, Mark, for you giving up your time. I'm going to give you one more shot, please, though, as we wrap it up. If there's something else you'd like to come back for a closing statement, now's the time. Mark?
Okay. Thank you. I'm appealing to everyone to come out and vote in this election. Do your research. Your vote is your voice. I've said that over and over again. This is how you get represented. The election last time was very, very close. Over 6,000 votes were cast. The margin was 11 votes at the end of the day. So your vote does really matter. Whichever side you want to vote for, please get involved, get to know the candidates. We're all more accessible than ever before, and come out and vote. I'm running for better priorities than normal. We really have a big opportunity in front of us. Regardless of who wins this election, people from all sides are going to need good representation. Regardless of who wins this election, Uptown will still be here. It's going to be a question of how we pay for that and what can we do with the debts that are being saddled to our future generations. It's a question of priorities. I believe I offer solutions that enhance the quality of life in this community, move everybody forward, and try and heal some of the divisions that have been going on these last few years. I'm asking for your vote on or before April 6th. I'm Marc Tiritilli, running for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you again, candidates for the Normal Township. We've had a great evening. I encourage you to check out the website. I encourage you to reach out to these candidates. They want to hear from you. They want, if you've got questions or want to reach out to them, you can contact us for contact if you can't find it. But on our webpage, we have an election page where it lists all the candidates for the various races in the area and links to finding out more about those candidates. So check that out. And for tonight, I think we are done. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Look forward to seeing you again on our next candidate forum. Good night, all.